In the brutal Wild West, a cowboy defied soldiers, bounty hunters, and death itself to save a starving Apache woman, changing both their fates forever. Don't miss this powerful tale of courage and redemption. Like, subscribe, and tell us where are you watching from. Let's get started. Dust spiraled across the barren plains as Clint McGraw slowed his horse, sensing something wrong in the eerie silence. The sun hung low like a burning coin, painting the land in copper shadows. His eyes narrowed when he spotted the abandoned army wagon ahead, wheels half buried in dry sand, hinting at sudden trouble. Clint dismounted carefully, boots crunching against brittle earth. He scanned the surroundings, hand instinctively brushing the worn handle of his revolver. The wagon's canvas flap fluttered in the hot wind, torn and stained. He stepped closer, expecting bandits, deserters, or perhaps a corpse left behind by careless soldiers. Instead, he saw her. An Apache woman lay collapsed near the wagon wheel, wrists rubbed raw from iron cuffs now broken open. Her breathing was shallow, skin pale beneath dust. She looked as though she hadn't eaten in days. Clint froze, struck by the quiet suffering carved into her features. For a moment he considered turning away. Cowboys drifting west weren't supposed to meddle in army business. Men had been hanged for less. But when her eyelids lifted weakly and he caught the exhaustion in her eyes, something inside him shifted like a door he didn't know existed. He knelt beside her, removing his canteen with slow, deliberate movements so she wouldn't panic. Her cracked lips trembled as he brought the water to her mouth. She hesitated, expecting harm, but thirst won. She drank in small, fearful sips, staring at him as though unsure whether he was real. Clint tore his last piece of jerky in half and offered it to her. She stared at it, confused, perhaps believing it a trick. When she finally took it, her hands shook from hunger. As she chewed painfully, Clint studied the broken cuffs. Someone had freed her, then abandoned her to die. A gust of wind rattled the wagon, revealing scattered supplies and a military jacket stained with blood. Clint's instincts sharpened. Whatever happened here had been violent and fast. Soldiers didn't just disappear, and they didn't leave prisoners behind. Something had gone terribly wrong long before he arrived. The woman tried to push herself upright, but her legs failed. Clint caught her gently, easing her back down. She flinched at his touch, expecting cruelty, the kind she likely endured from soldiers who saw her as less than human. Clint felt anger rise inside him, quiet but firm. He removed his coat and draped it over her trembling shoulders. She froze, unsure how to interpret such unexpected kindness. He spoke softly, each word careful. "You're safe now." The phrase seemed to suspend the moment. Her eyes widened, disbelief flickering across her face like a candle in the wind. Her gaze softened slowly, hesitantly, as though she had never heard a white man speak with gentleness. Clint sensed she wanted to understand him, maybe thank him, but exhaustion sealed her voice. She simply watched him with a mixture of suspicion and something painfully close to hope. He lifted her carefully into the shade beside the wagon where the ground was cooler. His horse snorted, uneasy, picking up scents Clint didn't recognize. The plains were unpredictable. Danger traveled far on the wind. Clint kept one hand near his sidearm, alert while she rested. As minutes passed, color returned faintly to her cheeks. She whispered something in Apache, voice barely audible. Clint didn't understand the words, but the tone carried gratitude. He nodded to reassure her. "Rest, I won't hurt you." The promise felt heavier than expected, but true to his core. The sky dimmed slowly, shifting into amber tones. Clint gathered dry brush to start a small fire. He worked quickly but quietly, mindful not to frighten her. Each time he glanced up, she was watching him, eyes alert despite her weakness, measuring his every movement. When the fire crackled to life, sending sparks into the darkening sky, she flinched again. Clint realized she expected punishment or restraint, things soldiers had used fire for. He shook his head and pushed the flames back gently with a stick, showing her it was for warmth, not harm. She leaned closer to the fire, cautious but drawn to the heat. Clint handed her another sip of water. Her fingers brushed his accidentally and she pulled away fast, fear rising again. It made Clint wonder how many times trust had cost her pain before this night. Hunger gnawed at Clint's stomach, but he ignored it, watching the shadows stretch across the plains. He wondered who she was. A scout? A healer? Someone captured during a raid? None of it mattered now. What mattered was that someone had left her to die, and he couldn't let that stand. Coyotes howled in the distance, their voices echoing across the Badlands. Clint fed another branch to the fire, ensuring it stayed bright enough to keep predators at bay. The woman's breathing steadied, though she still studied him like a man carved from uncertainty and unpredictable choices. After a long silence, she attempted to sit up again. Clint helped her, moving slowly so she wouldn't panic. Her eyes reflected the firelight, revealing a depth of sorrow and strength that startled him. She pointed weakly at the wagon, then toward the northern hills, trying to explain something. Clint followed her gestures, trying to piece together her meaning. Perhaps the soldiers had been taken. Or ambushed. Or maybe she alone had escaped. Whatever the truth, it was written in the bruise marks around her wrists and the silence she carried like heavy iron. Night settled fully, stars scattering across the sky. Clint adjusted the coat around her shoulders again, making sure she stayed warm in the dropping temperature. She watched him without flinching this time, the first sign that she believed he meant no harm. Trust was forming slowly, fragile but real. He leaned back against a tree trunk, hat low, but sleep wouldn't come. Every rustle in the grass made him tense. The woman dozed fitfully, haunted by memories he couldn't guess. Clint stayed awake, turning over the strange twist his life had taken in just a few hours. By midnight, the fire burned low, sending thin lines of smoke upward. Clint added the last piece of wood. He glanced toward the woman, noticing she was gripping his coat tightly, as though afraid he'd take it away or vanish. Something protective tightened in his chest. Clint realized he couldn't simply leave her come morning. Whoever had chained her, abandoned her, or hunted her might return. And if they did, she wouldn't survive alone. The thought solidified into a decision he didn't bother questioning. Tomorrow, he'd find answers, and keep her close until he did. As the wind cooled, she opened her eyes again, studying him carefully. Her expression had changed. Less fear. More trust. Maybe even relief. He offered a faint smile, the kind he rarely used. She didn't smile back, but her eyelids lowered peacefully. For the first time, she felt safe. Clint exhaled slowly, settling near the fire to keep watch. The quiet plains stretched endlessly around them, but something new filled the silence, a promise, unspoken yet undeniable. He didn't know her name, her history, or why fate placed her in his path. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty: he would protect her. Night settled thick and cold around the pines as Clint fed another branch into the fire. Sparks floated upward like drifting fireflies before fading into the black sky. The Apache woman sat wrapped in his coat, her eyes reflecting both exhaustion and suspicion. As though her spirit couldn't decide whether to rest. Clint kept his horse tied close, rifle within reach. The frontier wasn't forgiving, and bounty hunters weren't known for traveling alone. He moved with slow, predictable motions so he wouldn't startle her. Each time the fire crackled loudly, she flinched, gripping the coat tighter. Patience, Clint knew, would be his greatest tool. Her gaze followed him constantly, weighing his intentions with every breath he took. She didn't speak, but her silence carried stories he wished he understood. He wondered what the soldiers had done to her, what fears she carried. Whatever they were, he had to help her outrun them. A distant rumbling broke the quiet, faint at first. Clint paused, head lifting. The woman stiffened too, recognizing danger faster than he did. Hoofbeats fast, heavy, approaching. Clint rose slowly, eyes narrowing as he scanned the dark horizon. The sound grew louder, echoing off the rocky ridges like rolling thunder. He stepped in front of her instinctively, positioning himself between her and the approaching threat. "Stay behind me," he murmured, voice low but steady. She didn't hesitate. Despite her fear, she crawled closer to his back. trusting his stance even if her heart didn't fully trust the man himself. Yet three figures emerged from the darkness, horses snorting steam into the frigid air. Bounty hunters. Clint recognized their type instantly. Rough faces, patched coats, rifles strapped across saddles. The lead rider smirked as he spotted Clint. "Evening, cowboy. That woman behind you belongs to us." "Step aside." Clint didn't move. His hand rested lightly on his revolver, thumb brushing the worn grip. "She's not going anywhere with you." The firelight cast long shadows behind him, shaping his stance into something unyielding. The woman trembled behind him, gripping a pine root like she expected death to come either way. The bounty hunter spit into the dirt. "Paid good money to bring her back?" "Army don't like their prisoners escaping." Clint's jaw tightened. He didn't believe she escaped. Someone had tried to kill her by leaving her in the desert. "She's not your prisoner anymore." Clint growled, voice low as thunder. The hunters shifted uneasily. Something in Clint's posture, calm, ready, dangerous, made them reconsider. Men who'd lived long in the West could spot death in another man's stance. And Clint's stance promised violence faster than prayer. For a long moment they stared, waiting for him to blink. He didn't. Finally, the leader cursed under his breath, wheeled his horse around and motioned his men to follow. "Ain't worth dying over some Apache woman," he spat. They galloped away into the night, leaving a trail of dust and anger behind them. Only when the hoofbeats faded did Clint lower his hand. He turned back to her slowly, letting the danger seep out of his posture. She watched him with wide eyes, breathing fast, hands trembling. He knelt beside her, lowering his voice. "You're under my protection now." The words seemed to strike something deep inside her, something raw and desperate for safety. She touched her bruised wrists, eyes filling with tears she tried to hide. Clint didn't reach for her. He sensed she needed space, not hands. He simply sat beside the fire, close enough to offer warmth, far enough to show respect. The silence between them shifted, no longer hostile, but fragile. The flames danced shadows across her face, revealing the exhaustion etched into her bones. After several minutes, she whispered in a trembling voice, "Naya." Clint turned slightly. "Your name?" She nodded. "Naya." He repeated it softly, letting the name settle between them like a promise. "I'm Clint," he said gently. Naya studied him, as if measuring the honesty in his voice. When she spoke again, her voice cracked with pain. "Soldiers killed my brother." She pointed weakly toward the desert. "Took me." Her breath shook as old terror resurfaced. Clint felt rage coil in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "You're safe now," he reassured. "They won't touch you again." Naya stared into the fire, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She wasn't crying from fear. Clint recognized grief when he saw it. He let the silence carry her pain, knowing words wouldn't fix something. Carved so deep. Hours later, she finally leaned against the tree trunk, exhausted. Clint draped another blanket around her shoulders, careful not to startle her. She didn't pull away this time. That alone told him everything. Trust was slowly taking root. Not fully formed, but growing like a fragile seed in harsh soil. As she drifted toward sleep, her head tipped briefly onto his shoulder before she jerked upright, embarrassed. Clint offered a small smile. "It's all right," he said quietly. She hesitated, then allowed herself to lean against him again. This time she didn't pull away. Clint kept perfectly still, guarding her rest. The fire burned low as the night deepened, stars thick across the sky like scattered silver. Clint stayed awake, watching for any sign of returning danger. The weight of responsibility felt heavy, yet strangely right. Protecting Naya wasn't a burden. It was the first purpose he'd felt in years. Near dawn, Naya stirred, lifting her head slowly. For the first time, she didn't look afraid when she met his eyes. Instead, there was gratitude, quiet, profound, and sincere. She touched his arm lightly, a gesture asking rather than assuming. "Why? Help me?" she whispered. Clint breathed deeply before answering. "Because someone should have," he said simply. "And nobody else did." She absorbed the words carefully, like each syllable was a fragile gift she wasn't sure she deserved. When she finally nodded, it was small but full of meaning, a silent acceptance of the bond forming between them, as sunlight broke over the horizon, warming the pine needles. Clint packed the camp. Naya watched, unsure of their next steps. He saddled his horse, then extended his hand, not forcing, offering. She looked at it for a long moment, then placed her hand in his with gentle determination. He lifted her onto the horse, settling her safely in front of him. She glanced back only once at the vast land where her suffering had begun, then turned her face toward the rising sun. Clint guided the horse forward, his arm secure around her so she wouldn't fall. They rode through the awakening plains, wind sweeping through Naya's hair as tears dried on her cheeks. Clint felt her relax little by little, trusting his hold. She wasn't a prisoner anymore. She wasn't prey. She wasn't alone. With each mile, the weight of her past loosened its grip. Clint didn't know where their path would lead. Maybe to a remote settlement where she could start anew, or a quiet valley far from soldiers' reach. But wherever it ended, he knew one truth with certainty. He would ride at her side until she no longer feared the world. As the sun climbed higher, Naya rested her head gently against his chest, eyes closing in peaceful surrender. Clint tightened his arm around her, protective and steady. Her whispered words drifted back to him on the morning breeze, soft, fragile, and full of trust he'd earned. Clint, thank you. Clint swallowed hard, his voice rough with emotion. You don't owe me thanks, he murmured. Just live free. The horse continued its steady pace, carrying them toward a future neither expected but both desperately needed. And for the first time in years, Clint felt hope stirring like new dawn. Behind them, the plains swallowed the traces of danger. Ahead lay open sky, untouched mountains, and a life waiting to be rebuilt. Clint glanced down at Naya, realizing protecting her wasn't just duty, it was purpose. A connection forged not by blood or culture but by survival and compassion. As they rode on, the story of the cowboy and the starving Apache woman found its quiet ending not in violence, but in a promise. A promise Clint intended to keep until his final breath. And in that fragile beginning, two wounded souls discovered something neither expected. Freedom shared was freedom multiplied.